Financial Planner. Follow us on YouTube.
This morning, the Labor Department released the jobs numbers for July, the non-farm payroll numbers, and the expectation was for a gain of 178,000, and we beat it. We came out with 209,000 jobs, which is really not a lot of jobs. I mean, it's barely north of 200,000, and given the size of the American economy, creating 200,000 jobs in a month is really not a lot of jobs. But when you're expecting 178,000, right, when you have a really low bar and then you exceed those rather low expectations, everybody all of a sudden is like, oh, this is great. We have a strong jobs report. And in fact, they did revise last month's gain of 222,000 up to 231. So last month's was stronger. This month was better than estimates, but still less than the prior month. Unemployment rate did tick back down to 4.3. Remember, it jumped up to 4.4 the month before, and now it's back down to 4.3. We did have 16,000 gain in manufacturing jobs, and they did revise upward last month's gain from 1,000 to 12,000. So, you know, that's at least somewhat good news. I mean, we created some manufacturing jobs. Still, as a percentage of the overall jobs, it's small. The labor force participation rate did ratchet up 1/10 back to 62.9. Still very low. Wages rose 0.3, which was what they were expected to do. So we didn't beat there, but we didn't miss. And in June, the increase was just 0.2. And everything else, average hourly earnings stayed the same, up 2.5, and the work week stayed the same at 34.5, right? So it's not a disaster of a report, right? I mean, it didn't miss the numbers. But, I mean, it's not spectacular. We had plenty of reports just like this during the 8 years of Obama. I mean, some of them were weaker, some of them were stronger, but we had plenty of reports where we had more than 200,000 jobs created in a month. Plenty of reports where average hourly earnings were up 0.3%. And, of course, the unemployment rate was falling during the, most of Obama's tenure. Yet that didn't stop Donald Trump from tweeting, "Excellent jobs numbers just released." Excellent job numbers just released. What is excellent about these numbers? In fact, if you look at the household survey, which they also come out with on the same day, the household survey reveals that we created 393,000 part-time jobs during the month. That's huge. And we lost 54,000 full-time jobs. Now, Trump was complaining about this when he was a candidate. He talked about the loss of full-time jobs and the proliferation of part-time jobs. Yet now it's excellent news. We get the same type of report that was, a fraud when Obama was president, and now it's excellent news. In fact, the unemployment rate is low. He's talking about that. When he was a candidate, he was saying, well, the real unemployment rate is like 40%. Well, what's the real unemployment rate now? I mean, is it still that high? Or is the real unemployment rate now the one that the government reports? See, the problem I have with Trump is the hypocrisy of it. I just can't stand hypocrisy. Also, the question is, was Donald Trump being honest as a candidate, right? Did he really believe the numbers were phony, or was he just saying that? Or was he being dishonest as a candidate, and is he being honest as a president? Or was he an honest candidate, and is he being dishonest as a president? Does he realize that these numbers are BS, yet he's embracing them anyway because he thinks it's going to feather his own nest? He's going to use it as proof that the economy is prospering under his presidency when it's behaving exactly the way it did under Obama's presidency, and he was very critical of the Obama presidency. In fact, again, if you look at the jobs, about 40% of the jobs created were in leisure and hospitality, which was the number one category, and then healthcare and education. I mean, again, these are low-paying part-time jobs. I mean, the last thing we want is a more expensive healthcare system, more money spent on education. Those are two parts of the economy where we're bloated. We have too much spending in those areas, and now we're going to spend more. If we keep on hiring more people in the sectors that are already bloated, that just screws up the economy even more. And how much longer can the bars and the hotels and the restaurants keep hiring part-time people? I mean, we have record numbers of people now tending bar and waiting tables, although we have record numbers of bartenders who are tending bar for 2 or 3 different employers, right? That's what's going on. It's the Obamacare and the health care law that is really driving the numbers in that category, because nobody is hiring anybody full time. So now if you're a bartender, you don't tend bar at one bar. You work multiple bars, right? You have various shifts and you go from bar to bar so that nobody has to provide you with overpriced health insurance. But at some point, we're going to get a downturn in these sectors. I mean, look, it's already happening in retail. Retail used to be up at the top, right? When I used to look at the jobs where we were creating, it was always leisure and hospitality, education, healthcare, and in retail, right? Because the retailers were hiring lots of part-time people. That's changed, right? Given the collapse that we're seeing in retail sales, we're already starting to see a lot of layoffs in the retailing space, and so it's no longer one of the top categories. How much longer before the restaurants and the bars start laying people off there too? Because people aren't eating out as much either. They're not shopping and they're not eating out. And so at some point, that is going to have to turn around. Speaking about layoffs, Blue Apron, which I had talked about ever since the IPO, is just kind of like, a canary in a coal mine here as for problems in the market. They just announced today they are laying off 25% of their workforce. Unbelievable. They just went public. They just raised $300 million to fund an expansion. And now they're contracting 25%. The stock closed down another 6% today, 583. So now down better than 40% since the IPO price of $10. But what did investors give Blue Apron $300 million for if they're already contracting? Meaning they're taking the business that they had before they went public and they're making it even smaller now that they are public. I mean, the whole point of going public is supposed to be that you've got this great business that you really want to grow it. And so you just need extra capital to grow the business. So you go and you sell and you go public and you take the money that you raised. Blue Apron raised $300 million, right? You would think, okay, they're going to take this $300 million and scale up this great business that they have, this great business that caused them to go public. But that's not what's happening. Blue Apron didn't go public to scale up. They went public to cash out. I mean, they just sold their stock to investors, and now they're contracting their business. They're using that $300 million just to fund their losses. And they're trying to reduce their burn rate by reducing the headcount. But this is not what IPOs are supposed to be about, right? You're supposed to be about going from a smaller company to a larger company, right? You expand. You don't just start contracting and laying people off. And so, this is just more evidence of what's been going on there, and evidence of a market that has a lot of cracks in the foundation, like I said in my last podcast. Now, meanwhile, the market didn't react much to the jobs numbers today. I mean, we didn't get that big a pop. I mean, yes, the Dow made a record high today, but we were only up 66 points, still above 22,000. The NASDAQ composite was up, but just 11 points. I mean, that's, barely up 0.18%. So the market not getting much of a bounce. S&P 500 also up, but under less than 20 basis points. So not a huge run, although, of course, we've gone up a lot over the last couple of weeks, so we're just adding to those gains. The main reaction was in the Forex market and in the metals market. We saw a big spike in the dollar. The dollar had one of its best days of the year. Maybe it was the best day of the year. There haven't been too many good days this year for the dollar. Dollar index closed at 93.50 for the week. It was at a new low earlier this morning or overnight. So we did bounce, but it wasn't that big a bounce. I mean, 93.50, I think this is just some profit taking. Maybe some of the currency traders, the number wasn't worse than expected. So people who were long foreign currencies, short dollars, took some profits going into the weekend. I don't think this is going to reverse the trend for the dollar. I think the dollar is still going down. And again, I don't think this is a strong report. It's just another one of weak reports and a string of weak reports that are touted as being strong just because they're better than expectations. But the expectations are not high. When you're expecting an economy the size of the U.S. to add 175,000 jobs and we add 209,000 jobs, that is not a strong report. It's just not as weak as it could have been. And so you got that rally. Gold went the other way. Gold was flat before the number came out. In fact, gold was up around, I guess, $12.70 an ounce, and it immediately sold off. I think it got down as much as maybe 14, 15 bucks. I think we closed down 9. So about 12.59. Silver was down 40 cents. Bigger drop in silver. In fact, silver dropped 40 cents and stayed there pretty much all day. I mean, it never recovered. Gold at least ate into some of its losses, although, again, didn't recover, didn't even get close to positive. But you had a decline in gold and silver. Now, the mining stocks did not do that bad today. I mean, about 2% drop in the XAU. The GDX was down about 1.7%. Not that big a drop, given the fact that silver was down 40 cents and gold was down almost 10 bucks. I mean, so as I said, I think these stocks in general, as a sector, are kind of washed out. I don't think there's a lot of downside because I think these stocks already are pretty low relative to the current price of gold. And given what the dollar has been doing, if this trend continues, and I believe it will, there is going to be a breakout at some point in the gold price, and then these mining stocks are going to follow suit, and they're going to make up for a lot of lost ground. Turning to the cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin is now closing back in on the highs. I mean, it's not quite back up to 3,000 per Bitcoin yet. We're at, I think, as I'm recording this, it's about 2830. But apparently we went through that fork. One of the reasons that people were giving for the weakness in Bitcoin when Bitcoin dropped from 3,000 down to 1,800, most of that happening just over a weekend, where the supposed justification was nervousness over this fork because some of the miners, they didn't agree on certain things, and there was a worry that Bitcoin would split up. I'm really not actually sure what the dynamics were about the fork, but apparently everything is fine. But there is another coin that was created, Bitcoin Cash, and this one came out of nowhere. I don't know how it was created or if it's always been around. I mean, I'm not, I don't know everything about these cryptocurrencies, and I'm not even sure if it was like a stock spin-off. I mean, if you own Bitcoin, did you get some Bitcoin Cash? Did everybody who used to own Bitcoin now, do they own both currencies, or did you have to go and buy Bitcoin Cash? I'm really not sure, but apparently that Bitcoin Cash value all of a sudden out of nowhere shot way up, and still it has a market cap of $4.5 billion as I'm recording this, but it is down 33% on the day. So the market cap was a lot larger yesterday than it is today, but it's still pretty large. But when I look at that and I start to think, there's all these different cryptocurrencies out there. I wonder how many others use the name Bitcoin, because when I look at this list on coinmarketcap.com, and it lists the top 100 cryptocurrencies, and none of them use the word Bitcoin in their name, except this Bitcoin Cash. But I mean, what's to stop somebody from coming up with a digital currency and just calling it Bitcoin Plus, Bitcoin Supreme, New Bitcoin, Better Bitcoin, Bitcoin 2.0, Super Bitcoin. I mean, all kinds of different ways that you can, jazz it up and make it sound like it's even better. New and improved Bitcoin. I mean, it makes me think of that. You remember that movie, Something About Mary, where the guy comes up with this, a video 7-minute abs, because, there's the 8-minute abs. And he's like, look, I've got a great idea. I'm going to put the 8-minute ab guys out of business. I got the 7-minute abs. And so what are you going to buy? You go to a video store and there's, 8-minute abs and 7-minute abs, right? Which one you're going to buy? Of course, you're going to take the 7-minute abs, right? Why work an extra minute if you can get great abs in 7 minutes? Who wants to have to, use 8, right? So he was going to do that. I'm thinking, well, why buy Bitcoin if you can buy Bitcoin Supreme or Bitcoin Plus or whatever they want to name it, right? Of course, but then, that the funny part of that movie when the guy in the car basically says, well, all right, well, what happens if someone comes up with 6-minute abs? And he's like, no one's going to come up with 6-minute abs. But, of course, you could always come up with another name. So even if you're Bitcoin Plus and now someone is Bitcoin Super Plus, I mean, you could always find a way to rebrand it. But then I started to think about it. What stops another cryptocurrency from being created and they just call it Bitcoin, right? Because, I mean, is Bitcoin trademarked or copyright? Because it's like nobody really owns, right, the Bitcoin network. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but is there any kind of, copyright trademark protection? I mean, what stops somebody else from launching a cryptocurrency and just calling it Bitcoin? And then how do you know if you got the right Bitcoin? I mean, if somebody else could launch Bitcoin, and then what if 100 people come out and launch 100 Bitcoins? It's the exact same name. It's called Bitcoin, right? But I mean, it's not Bitcoin, right? I mean, so now you got to make sure every time you're getting a Bitcoin that you're getting the right one. If there's a whole bunch of them out there, I don't know. But these are all the problems that I see coming up in the realm of these cryptocurrencies when there's no limit to the number of cryptocurrencies that can exist in the world, and probably no limit to the number of cryptocurrencies that could use Bitcoin in their name or just call themselves Bitcoin, even though they're not Bitcoin, they're just something else, but they're still utilizing a blockchain. It's just another cryptocurrency. It's not that cryptocurrency. It's a different cryptocurrency, which may have all the same properties as Bitcoin. And in fact, they may have even improved on them. It may be easier to use. You may be able to process the transactions even quicker than you can with the existing Bitcoin. But I want to go back to the jobs, because that's really all you're going to hear over the nightly news this weekend. It's going to be about the strong jobs. Donald Trump, President Trump, excellent jobs report, excellent jobs numbers, 208,000 jobs. I mean, that is not a strong number. You know, when Ronald Reagan was president, of course, a lot of people like to say that Donald Trump, well, he's the new Reagan, right? This is the next Reagan revolution. Well, I remember in 1983, I just pulled out some of these statistics. In the month of September alone, in 1983, there was the month of September, we added 1,114,000 jobs in 1 month. That's more than 5 times the amount of jobs that we just added in the month of July. And Trump is saying it's an excellent number compared to 101.14 million. And remember, the population of the United States is roughly 40% larger today than it was in 1983. So if you really want to make an apples to apples comparison, we would have to create 1.5 million jobs in a single month to equal what was created in 1983. And if you look at the rest of the numbers, I'm looking at the 15 months that were subsequent to that 1.114 million jobs that were created in September. Now, that was the biggest month, but take a listen to these numbers that happened in the following months. 271,000, 352,000, 356,000, 447,000, 479,000. Are you getting the picture? Huge numbers month after month after month when the population was 40% smaller. So, I mean, we would have to be printing numbers in the 600,000, 700,000s a month. So those would be really strong numbers. Those would be really excellent numbers. We're not even anywhere close to that. And especially if you think about the labor force participation rate, there are so many people who are not in the labor force who potentially could be back in the labor force. We have this huge supply of people on the bench, basically, that we have to get them back onto the field. So we have the potential to create lots more jobs than we are, given how many people are not working. So the question is, why are we not creating those jobs? It's not like people don't need jobs. I mean, people really need jobs. There's just no good jobs. In fact, I read another statistic that said that all the jobs that were created so far this year, all the net new jobs, were for people who only have a high school degree or less, meaning for college-educated people, we're actually still losing jobs. So if you didn't go to college, if you just went to high school or you didn't even graduate, all right, we've been creating more jobs for you. But we haven't been creating more of the higher paying jobs. We're creating low paying jobs. We're creating jobs for people that need to work part-time. If you never saw my YouTube video where I was in New Orleans, just go check that one out. I mean, it's an underappreciated video because it only has about 200,000 views. I thought I would have gotten more views, especially with my thumbnail that I picked for that one. And if you've never seen it, if you go take a look at the thumbnail, you'll know what I'm talking about. But you can see that one. I think the title of it is A College Degree Worth the Cost. You decide. But, these are the kinds of jobs. Go listen to the jobs that all these people have. that are working in New Orleans. And I know there are people that accuse me of cherry picking. I mean, pretty much, these are all the people I talk to. Everybody. I think maybe I talked to maybe a half a dozen people max, probably less, that actually didn't graduate college. And I basically talked to everybody that I could talk to. I mean, you see how many people I talked to in that. It was pretty much, I mean, it wasn't like I had to shoot hours and hours of footage to find the people. They were there. I mean, it's just like, when I did the video at the DNC, which that one got more than 1 million views. And there people think, well, I was just, cherry picking. There, I did cherry pick, but I would say that a half to a third of the people I asked if they wanted to ban profits wanted to do it. That's still a lot of people, right? I mean, yes, I'd say it was a minority. Most people didn't want to ban profits outright. But the fact that any delegate at the DNC would be so dumb as to want to ban corporate profits, make it illegal for a corporation to have a profit, the fact that I could find anybody, let alone the large percentage that I did find. But when I did this video on Bourbon Street, hardly anybody didn't go to college. I mean, so this is, this is a very, very good depiction of what is going on. By the way, there's another video, as I was looking at that video, another video that if you haven't seen it, it's a really good one to look at, is the one it's the cartoon one that I did, Oprah Winfrey interviewing Ben Bernanke. And we made that video after Oprah Winfrey did that interview with Lance Armstrong. And I thought it was very funny, so I did a parody of it. And I always thought it was underappreciated because it only got about 70 or 80,000 views. It is very, very funny. I mean, watch that video. You'll laugh. I mean, I laugh. I just watched it the other day, and I'm laughing at it again. Even though I helped make it, I'm still laughing at it. Oh, another couple, while I'm at that, a couple of videos that I think are underappreciated. If you haven't seen them, watch my YouTube videos from Mr. Schiff Goes to Washington and Mr. Schiff Returns to Washington. One of them, the later one, has about 100,000 views, and my first testimony has about 50,000 views. It's great to watch. They're not long, but check those out as well. There's a lot of lists. Of course, if you go to my YouTube channel, you can go and check out all the videos that are there and rewatch some of the ones that you might have missed or watch them again, and then share them with your friends too. I mean, but there's some funny stuff there. But getting back on point, 200,000 jobs is not a lot of jobs to create in 1 month, especially when so many people are absent from the labor force. So many people have left the labor force. If you're talking about excellent job creation, we need those people coming back in. Right? We need those people getting jobs. And I still think that most of these jobs are just people working part-time, right? According to the household survey, we destroyed 50,000 full-time jobs. We added 350,000 are part-time jobs. It's all part-time jobs. And when you're creating part-time jobs, the numbers are going to be higher because you need more part-time jobs because each person is working fewer hours. So if somebody has 3 part-time jobs and collectively they're only working 30 hours, if they're working 10 hours at 3 places, that counts as more jobs than one full-time job where you're working 40 hours. But you're probably making more money at one full-time job where you're working 40 hours than 3 part-time jobs where you're making 10. And especially if you have to commute. That's the worst part about part-time jobs and moonlighting and the gig economy is when you're going from one crappy job to another, the transportation cost is on you. So you don't get paid for that, right? The commute time between your jobs, I mean, unless you're lucky enough to work for 2 bars right next door to each other, I mean, you might lose an hour or two, between jobs just going from one to the other. And so all this is just wasted time. You got to waste money in gas. It's creating more traffic. So these are not excellent numbers. And the final thing I want to talk about is this new immigration policy. Donald Trump now wants to crack down on legal immigration, not just illegal immigration, but legal immigration. And the idea is to make sure that the people coming into the country are going to be net contributors to the economy, right? That they have skills that are in demand, that they speak the English language, so that people who are coming in are going to be a positive addition to our society. They're not coming in just to be on welfare and to commit crimes. Now, I agree with that, right? I would like to make sure that nobody comes into this country and becomes a citizen or gets a green card if they're just going to go on welfare and food stamps and stuff like that. What do we need that for? But I disagree that we only need engineers and computer scientists. We need everybody. I mean, believe me, I mean, if it wasn't for immigrants, we'd have nobody picking fruit in the fields. I mean, there are a lot of jobs that American citizens won't do because they'd rather get welfare. And I don't blame them. I would rather get welfare than work most of these low-paying jobs that illegal immigrants are doing, right? And in fact, some of those illegal immigrants would probably rather get the welfare too if they could. But I guess when you're illegal, you can't qualify for it, right? You're not even supposed to be here, so you're not supposed to be getting welfare. Though I'm sure there's so much fraud in our welfare system. I bet there are a lot of illegals who are collecting welfare. But that's beside the point that I'm trying to make. To say that we only want to let in higher skilled technical people, that's wrong. I think we should let in everybody who wants to work. Now, you have this idea or this theory out there that, well, that's driving down wages because, immigrants are coming in and they're working cheap. And because they're doing that, the wages are lower. If there were let's say if immigrants didn't come in and do all these low paying jobs that Americans would rather collect welfare than do, if employers didn't have the ability to hire these people, then wages would have to rise to the point where they were high enough so that an American would want to get off his butt and actually take the job. So people think if we just keep the cheap labor out of the country, then wage rates are going to go up, and then we're going to have, better jobs. And now people, let's say I'm on welfare right now and there's a job that pays $8 an hour and I don't want it. I'd rather get welfare than $8 an hour. And all these, immigrants are taking the $8 an hour because they don't have the choice. And let's say the employer couldn't hire the immigrants. Maybe the wages would go up to $15 an hour or $20 an hour. Now, okay, well, that's better than welfare. I'll take that job, right? So that's what people think. But that's not what's going to happen. You see, if the illegals or immigrants are not here to do these jobs at these lower wages, the companies aren't just going to pay extraordinarily high wages to Americans. They're just going to shut down. They're just going to outsource. They're going to, move their businesses offshore. In fact, there are a lot of higher paying jobs that exist only because there are lower paid immigrants, some of them illegal, who are doing work that are making those higher paying jobs possible. So you take away a lot of the lower wage workers, and that's the base of your pyramid. The whole thing comes tumbling down, and a lot of higher income people don't have jobs either. And also, I've said this before, you go out to California, how many women have jobs because they have illegal housekeepers taking care of their kids when they're at work? If a lot of women who have jobs in California had to hire legal childcare, they couldn't afford to work. They'd have to quit. It's only because they've gotten illegal taking care of their kids that they can afford to leave the home and have a job. So a lot of things would happen. But I am sympathetic with what Trump is trying to do. It's just the wrong way. It's not just, you have to be high skilled. And even I don't even care. Just, you don't have to speak English. I mean, what if you're coming in to pick fruit or to clean dishes? You don't have to know English. There are jobs that you can do in America without speaking English, right? So I don't mind if somebody who only speaks Spanish or, it doesn't matter, Italian or French or whatever they speak, if they want to come into this country and they want to work, let them come, right? More people working is a positive for the society. And then when people are saying, well, you're driving down wages, you have to remember, wages are prices. It's the price of labor, right? If you can hire people for less money, you're better off. I mean, think about it. Forget about it from an employer. Most people can relate to certain things. What about a babysitter? Don't you want to be able to hire a babysitter for less money? I mean, the cheaper the babysitter is, the more likely it is you can go out to dinner with your wife, or you can go out to the theater, or you can do something, right? If you have to pay a babysitter a lot of money, you might not be able to afford to go out because you can't afford to go out and pay the sitter, right? If your sink is clogged and you want to call a plumber, do you want the plumber to charge you a lot of money or a little bit of money? Obviously, as little as possible. If the plumber is going to charge you too much, you're probably going to try to do it yourself. You can't afford the plumber. I mean, the same thing. You take your car to be repaired. You want the mechanic. You want a low price. People shop around. Lower wages are good. Remember, the price that you pay to have your car fixed, those are the mechanic's wages. Everybody pays wages. All consumers pay wages when they buy products. And we always shop around looking for the lowest price. So if wages are coming down, just think prices. Wages are coming down, prices are coming down. That's good. So to the extent that immigrants come in and do more work, and because they do more work, prices come down, people have a higher standard of living. We can buy more stuff when it's less expensive. So this whole idea that we just, we don't want lower skilled people coming in, that's not true. But what I would love to see Donald Trump do is have immigrants. So if you come into this country, you can't be on welfare. You can't, we don't want someone to become legal. Let's say we let somebody, okay, you're immigrating into the country, you're here. But you're not allowed, or maybe for the first 5 or 10 years that you're here, you can't get welfare. You can't get food stamps. You can't get any of these government programs, right? So you're coming in here without a safety net. You want to come in here, you want to take a shot at working, take a shot. But if it doesn't work, go back to your home country. Don't just stay here and go on welfare. See, that way, people coming to America aren't going to come here for a handout. They're going to be coming here for the freedom and the opportunity to work their way up the ladder. That's what Trump should be talking about. Not, because when he talks about, well, I want to make sure they speak English, now all of a sudden they all play the race card. Oh, this is all about racism, right? And you talk about we want to have skills. Now, I do think, yes, if somebody has special skills that are in high demand, maybe you let them go to the front of the line, right? Because certainly some of these higher end jobs are going to be more important to the economy. But overall, we want to let all able-bodied men and women who want to work to come into the country, right? And of course, we don't want criminals coming in. Make sure we're not letting in, people with criminal records or terrorists. But if somebody has got the gumption to come over here, right, because they want to improve their lot in life, they want to better themselves, I want that person. Let that person in. Let that person go to work. What I don't want is someone coming in just to go on welfare, to go on food stamps, because I got to support that guy. And I don't want to support them. I'm fine supporting my own family, but I don't want to support somebody else's. So if you're not going to come to this country to support yourself and support your own family, then don't come in. But don't think you're going to come here and then force other people to support you. That is the distinction that Donald Trump needs to be made.
Financial Planner. Flow on YouTube.